Life as a police officer in the concrete jungle doesn't just harden you, it builds a wall of doubt so thick that you're almost untouchable. That's who I was, Emma, a 37-year-old ex-lieutenant turned private investigator, carrying a load of suspicion heavier than the cases I took on. My work centered around infidelity and lies, not exactly the stuff of romantic dreams. Then Bobby came along, a refreshing change in an otherwise jaded world. We met at a Philadelphia art exhibit, where I felt completely out of my element, wandering the gallery like a fish out of water. That's when Bobby appeared, admiring what seemed like a heap of discarded items. "Interesting piece, right?" he said. "If by interesting you mean I've seen cleaner trash heaps, then yes," I replied. His rich, hearty laugh instantly made me feel at ease. We struck up a conversation, and from that moment on, everything felt different. 7 months later, I was head over heels. Bobby, with his effortless charm, swept me away with his poetry, art galleries, and his unwavering attention that made me feel like the only woman in the world. One evening, beneath the stars in Central Park, he popped the question, and without a second thought, I said yes. But, as with any fairy tale, there were dark clouds, namely, Marilyn, Bobby's mother. Our first dinner together was chilly, with Marilyn sizing me up like I was an unwelcome guest. "A detective? Isn't that a bit unrefined?" she asked, her tone dripping with disdain. "Depends on which era you're living in," I retorted, earning a tight-lipped smile from Bobby. Marilyn's visits became regular inspections of my life. 3 weeks after we married, she appeared unannounced. "Emma, darling," she began, condescendingly, "still clinging to that quaint little profession of yours? I thought marriage would ever find you." I tightened my grip on the knife I was using to chop vegetables. "Where I come from, we call this earning a living," I shot back. "Maybe you should give it a try instead of leeching off others." Her lips pressed together in annoyance. Bobby was raised with certain expectations. "You still have time to pursue a more fitting career. Perhaps you could make meddling your full-time job." "Thanks, but I'll stick to catching cheaters and deceivers. How's the bridge club treating you?" Just then, Bobby walked in, as if on cue. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. "Your wife was explaining her career choices," Marilyn said, her tone overly sweet. Bobby sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Mom, Emma's job is important to her. It's part of who she is." Then, turning to me, he added, "Emma, let's not do this now, okay?" I wanted to argue, but instead, I bit my tongue. "Fine," I muttered, returning to the vegetables. After Marilyn's visits, Bobby retreated into a sullen silence. It was becoming clear whose side he was on, and it wasn't mine. One night, after Marilyn criticized everything from my cooking to my housekeeping, I confronted Bobby. "Why don't you stand up for me? Your mother treats me like I'm invisible, and you just let her. Is this what our marriage is supposed to be?" He looked drained. "Emma, she's old-fashioned. What do you want me to do, cut her out?" "No," I said, exasperated. "I want you to support me. Tell her she can't trample over us." "I'll talk to her," he muttered, running his hand through his hair. "Just give it time, she'll come around." But she didn't, and neither did he. The distance between us widened, driven by Marilyn's coldness and Bobby's indifference, creating a gap too vast to bridge. Living with Bobby felt like starring in a melodrama, where the cracks in the picture-perfect life only grew larger. Bobby's work at an art gallery seemed prestigious, but his paychecks were unreliable. Meanwhile, I worked hard to provide us with a comfortable life in a chic apartment. One evening, I brought up the topic of the future. "I've been thinking," I said, putting my fork down. "It would be nice to own a house someday, you know? Something with enough room if we decide to have kids." Bobby froze, his fork suspended midair. "Emma, where are you coming up with these ideas? We don't need a house, and finding a new job for me, that's not even on the agenda." I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "It's not about needing it, Bobby, it's about planning for the future, stability, thinking ahead." He chuckled, though it sounded more dismissive than before. "You and your obsession with money, always doing the math. Money isn't everything, Emma." That laugh, that patronizing laugh, pushed me past my limit. "Easy for you to say when you're not the one stressing about bills every month," I snapped. He shrugged, unconcerned. "I'm happy with the way things are. You're the one who's never happy." The tension continued to mount. That night, I lay awake, my mind racing. It wasn't just about the house or kids or money. It was about respect, partnership, and support, none of which Bobby seemed to care about. As long as his life was comfortable, My concerns were dismissed as some misguided fixation on money. On a seemingly normal Sunday, the tension hit a new peak when Marilyn showed up again, uninvited. The living room became a stage for drama when I overheard her on the phone, her voice frazzled. "You're telling me my social security number is suspended?" she said, rifling through her checkbook. "How much do I need to pay to fix this?" From the kitchen, I caught snippets of social security and payment, and every instinct honed from years of police work screamed, "Scam." I walked into the living room. "Marilyn, hang up, it's a scam," I said, trying to stay calm. She turned, eyes wide with disbelief. "I'm handling it, Emma, there's no need for your interference." I stepped closer. "Trust me, I've seen this before. They're trying to steal from you." Her lips tightened, but she hesitated. I gently reached for the phone. "Hang up, and we'll call the real Social Security office together." Reluctantly, she ended the call. Just as expected, Bobby entered. "Mom, you should have listened to Emma from the start," he said, resting his hand on her shoulder. But instead of thanks, Marilyn shot me a venomous look. "It's always so convenient for her to play the hero, isn't it?" The gratitude I hoped for evaporated in an instant. I clenched my teeth, swallowing my anger. I stepped forward, grabbed the phone, and ended the call with a sharp click. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Marilyn recoiled, eyes blazing. "How dare you? You treat me like a fool." Before I could reply, Bobby appeared in the doorway. Frustration etched across his face. "Emma, why are you upsetting my mother?" I turned to him, frustration bubbling over. "That call was from scammers, Bobby. They were trying to scam Marilyn. I've dealt with this before." Bobby rubbed his neck, caught in the middle. "Okay, but couldn't you have handled it more delicately?" Marilyn, shaking with fury, stormed out of the room. Bobby sighed, glancing between her exit and me. "Emma, I know you meant well, but you have to be more careful, especially with my mother." I felt a pang of guilt, yet I remained resolute. "Bobby, I understand it may have seemed harsh, but these scammers thrive on urgency." There was no time to be gentle. Hesitating could have cost her a fortune. The next day, torn between guilt and curiosity, I dialed Marilyn's number. After a few rings, she answered, her voice icy. "What do you want, Emma?" I cleared my throat. "I just wanted to follow up after yesterday. Did you manage to speak with the bank about that call?" There was a lengthy silence before she responded, almost grudgingly, "Yes, they confirmed it was a scam." A sense of relief washed over me, but her tone quickly turned cold again. "That doesn't excuse how you handled it. You were rude and hostile." I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache brewing. "I'm sorry if I seemed harsh. I was trying to protect you. These scammers know exactly how to manipulate people." Her response was clipped, though there was a hint of recognition. "Well, I guess I should thank you for stopping me from making a mistake, but that still doesn't change how I feel about your approach. Goodbye, Emma." Bobby's birthday was approaching, and I saw it as a chance to bridge the growing gap between us. I meticulously planned a romantic weekend getaway, hoping it would help us reconnect, but Marilyn had other plans, scheduling an extravagant dinner on a weekday, fully aware of my heavy workload. On the phone, I begged, "Can we move it to Saturday? I'm swamped with work." Her voice was full of authority. "No, dear, Bobby shouldn't have to change his plans for your job." Frustrated, I confided in my boss, who understood the situation. "Go," he encouraged with a knowing glance. "Take care of what you need to." When I arrived at Marilyn's, the party was already in full swing, a lavish spectacle. Marilyn spotted me immediately, her smile tight as she whispered something to Bobby. I noticed him standing by the fireplace, his arm casually draped around a woman, definitely more than a colleague. My heart dropped, but I walked up to them anyway. "Don't you think an introduction is in order?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. Bobby visibly recoiled, his face draining of color. "Ah, Emma, this is Lori from the gallery, and this is Emma, my relative." "Relative?" I couldn't hold it in. "Your wife, Bobby, your actual wife." The room fell silent, everyone's gaze fixated on us. Bobby blushed with embarrassment and annoyance. "A real wife would have prioritized her husband's birthday," he muttered, turning his back on me. Before I could respond, Marilyn appeared, her voice cutting through the tension. "You don't belong here. Bobby needs someone supportive, like Lori, not whatever this is." Her words sliced through me. "I think it's time you leave," she sneered, her smile venomous. I took a deep breath. "You're right, Marilyn. I don't belong in a family built on lies and deceit." With that, I turned and walked out into the cold night, the sting of betrayal burning in the icy air. After the disaster at Bobby's birthday, I knew I needed undeniable proof to end the marriage on my terms. The thought of investigating Bobby myself was unbearable, but I couldn't ignore it. I called Alan, a trusted colleague with a knack for uncovering affairs. "Hey, Alan, I need a favor," I said, steadying my voice. "Anything, what's going on?" he replied, ever loyal. "It's Bobby, I'm sure he's seeing someone. I need proof." Alan didn't hesitate. "I'll get you what you need, you'll have it soon." True to his word, Alan delivered photos, audio clips, and irrefutable evidence. Lori wasn't just a colleague, she was involved in fraudulent activity, attempting to secure a quick marriage for her immigration status. I wanted to confront Bobby, but then I remembered his smug face and condescending words. He didn't deserve my concern, nor my help. Filing for divorce felt like ripping off a band-aid from a festering wound. I demanded financial compensation, the bare minimum after his betrayal. The fallout was intense. Marilyn stood by Bobby, painting me as the villain, but I didn't back down. With the evidence and my unyielding resolve, I remained firm. When the divorce papers were finalized, it wasn't just the end of my marriage, it marked the beginning of a new chapter. Starting my detective agency wasn't just a dream come true, it was a testament to my strength. The agency quickly gained a reputation for discretion and effectiveness, built on the hard lessons I had learned. One morning, as sunlight streamed into my new office, Alice, my right-hand woman, knocked on the door. "Boss, got a minute? We've got a potentially big case. A woman suspects her husband of cheating, wants surveillance photos, the whole package." I couldn't help but smile. "Sounds like our specialty, got the details?" Alice placed a file on my desk. "Yeah, but there's a catch, she's on a tight budget." I thought for a moment. "Tell her we'll work with her budget, and we'll make sure we cover everything. I know what it's like to be on the other side of this." Alice grinned. "Knew you'd say that. You're a good person, you know?" I smirked. "Try telling that to my ex." As the cases piled up, I began to heal. Infidelity, secrets, lies, these were all familiar patterns, but with every case closed, I felt a part of me mending. I knew I had made the right decision to start fresh. One morning, an elderly woman stormed into the office, demanding to speak with me. Her daughter-in-law had disappeared with a large sum of money, and she needed help. Curious, I agreed to meet with her, and soon realized it was Marilyn, my former mother-in-law. "Emma, you run this agency?" she asked, shocked. "I do," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "How can I help?" Desperation crept into her voice. "You have to find her, the woman who took Bobby's money. Do it for the family's sake." Her audacity left me speechless. "First, we're not family. Second, I run a business, not a charity for ex-in-laws. After everything, can't you do this one thing for us?" she pleaded. I laughed bitterly. "The least I could do, Marilyn, after your son cheated on me? Call the police." She stood there, stunned, unable to comprehend my refusal. "Marilyn, I've learned my lesson. Never trust liars and scammers. Maybe it's time you did too." Life had come full circle, but I had no intention of returning to their chaos. A week later, Bobby called. I answered, despite myself. "Bobby, what do you want?" "I've been thinking. I want us to start over, for the kids." I snorted. "Really? And where would we live? With my mom?" He eagerly replied, "We can save money and buy a house. It'll be perfect." I laughed, the absurdity of his proposal sinking in. "You think I'd come back, play house with you and your mom, and foot the bill?" "Emma, I've changed," he begged. "No, Bobby, you haven't changed at all. Goodbye." As I hung up, a sense of peace washed over me. I had grown, healed, and reclaimed my life. The future was bright, full of possibilities. With newfound purpose, I turned back to my work. The best revenge? Living well, and that's exactly what I was doing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Stay stunned.